Welcome back to Tux Traveler. Well, there's one thing that I figure that I need in the van that I'm going to install today, and that is going to be one of the standard power ports. You will find them on any of your solar generators. I'm not sure if your Jackeries are going to have these or not, but a lot of the solar generators are going to have these little ports here. Let me get focused in on it here. So these little ports right here, this is a standard size port. I forget the exact size off the top of my head. It's like a 2.5 millimeter port. And with these ports, a lot of different devices can plug into them. And so I actually have a bag of these guys. And my bag contains male and female connectors. And what this basically means is we're going to take one of the female connectors, we're going to plug this into the side of the van running out a 12 volt current here. So then any other device that I have that needs some form of power, first and foremost, many of them already have a plug like this, of this exact size. All of my computer monitors are plugs of this size. Half of my computers and other things are a plug of this size. Now, it's not always the same voltage. You have to be aware of that. But it is fairly standard to find solar generators with output a 12 volt on these types of things. And so installing one of these in basically means I have this guy hanging around somewhere in accessibility to the office. I can plug any other device into here and have power. So we're going to go ahead and do that today. First, let's go ahead and show you the tools I'm going to need to do this. All right, so the tools I'm going to use, I have a voltmeter over here. I'm going to use this just to make sure that we are outputting our correct voltages, make sure there's no other surprises in the electrical. Of course, I'm going to need my female plug port. This is my whole bag of them. The whole bag of them cost me like 10 bucks or something. You're going to need wire cutters and crimpers. These are not the best cutters, but they are really good crimpers. So, and since I only need to do like 1 or 2 wires, that's okay with that. We're going to use some wiring, and I think this is probably 14 gauge wiring. It's what I had around. I have more black wiring of different sizes. I only had one red wiring, and so I just went ahead and grabbed the black I had, and I have a lot more of the red. So of course your red's your positive, your black's your negative or ground. I'm going to use some connectors. These two here are going to connect into my distribution bar, and I've created my own distribution bars. I'll show you how I did those. And then I have some male and female connectors. We're going to put the male on one end of the wires. We're going to put the female on the other end of our male connector, and that's going to allow us to easily modularize this guy if we have to. Just in case, I think I am going to need a screwdriver at some point in time. I may need needle nose pliers, I'm not sure, so I pull them out anyway. There's that. So the first thing that we're going to do over here, this is my shutoff for my solar. So if there's something goofy with the solar panels, this is my kill valve for the solar, back in the charge controller, and this back here is the DC fuse box. So what we have here is my DC distribution box. And this guy's going to distribute 12 volt DC power everywhere throughout the van. So we're going to just click on the guy back here, pull this off. And my monitors are this line here that says VHS. And this guy right now is at a 10 amp fuse. Now, I did my calculations last night, and what is on this fuse right now, best of my knowledge, and I will be able to tell as soon as I pull this guy open, but what I'm running on here is my computer monitors. So here I have my computer monitors. I have 2 of them there. I got some Viva going on there on the monitor there. So this monitor is a 12 volt, and this one pushes out 3.3 amps at 12 volts. The second monitor over here, this is a 19 volt monitor, which pushes out 1.58 amps. So converting that down to the 12 volt power draw means we're drawing 2.5 amps. So that means I have, here's my calculation block over here. So right now there is a 10 amp fuse on that. What we have here are the 2 monitors. We have a 3.3 amp, we have a 2.5 amps, which means we're going to run about 6 amps there. And then what the main item that I would like to run on this guy is going to be a camera battery, although I can run other stuff on it as well. The camera battery output is 8 volt 3 amp, which is 2 amps at 12 volts. Now, I've never seen the thing draw 2 amps, but even if it does draw 2 amps, what that means is we're at 8 amps and we have a 10 amp fuse. And so I'm happy with a 10 amp fuse for there. If it blows, I'll replace it with a 15 amp, however. But we should be good because the monitors don't draw the total power here either. So let's go ahead and talk about what we need to do next. So here is my power distribution place where I have all these things at. And this board that I have here is just a very tight fit, but it's not screwed in. So I can just lift that board out, and I have this set in here with these L brackets on one side, and I think they just are a tight fit on the back. And then inside here, I'll show you what this guy looks like. Turning on a little bit of light. We have this guy here is the 12 volt buck converter, which goes to the one monitor. You can see this is fed out to our port, which is connected to a male plug-in port for the monitor. So that works out just fine. And then I have a power distribution bar here. Looks like I did a different power distribution bar on these. Okay, so after looking at how I have my power running, what we have here is I actually built a different distribution block back here. It's not the same way that I was doing the distribution blocks the other places. So what I'm using here is just a single screw as a distribution block. So we're coming in, and this power here, this is my negative ground. This one here is my power to my switch, which is controlled right here on this toggle switch. So that's now off. And then this is my main power line. So if I want this thing to always have power to it, I plug the black end over here, and I plug the red end over here. If I want it controlled by this power switch, then I plug the black end here and the red end here, since this screw is only powered on by the toggling of the switch. And actually, that's the way I'm going to prefer to go. I can't imagine a scenario where I need this guy where I have to have the monitors off, and if that does happen, I simply pull the power plugs on the back of both monitors. No big deal. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run the negative into this side. We're going to run the positive into this side. And we're going to run our plug out this port over here, because that's the one that is closest to the power distribution. So the very first step, we're going to come down here. We're going to find our fuse. It's going to be the third one down, the red one on the right side. That is the 10 amp fuse. We're going to pull this. So what that's going to do is, as long as this fuse is out, no power is going to come to this. And I can test this by clicking on the toggle button for the monitor, and you'll see the red light will turn on. So the red light they're turning on means that its power is trying to feed to that circuit, but is prevented, because what that's going to mean is there's either no fuse, or more useful, the fuse is broken. So it tells me really quickly which fuse is broken. So that though is going to keep me safe, so I don't have to disconnect power to the rest of the van. Once that fuse is out, we can now safely work on the electricity up here. So the first step, what we're going to do is I'm going to take my wires here, and we're going to feed this back through these wires right next to these, because what we're going to do is I'm going to put my slide connectors on this side, so they'll act as an extra pole if this guy gets pulled out. And then this guy I don't really want super long anyway, so most of it can sit right inside. In fact, it's almost to the point where I could probably plug it directly into the wiring that I want. That might be a little bit better way than I originally had thought. I thought I was going to have a lot longer distance. But if I go ahead and sample this and just determine there, if I just plug this guy here, that's actually going to work fairly well. It's going to be very strong. I thought I was going to have to use extra wires, because I thought these distribution bars were one on one side and one on the other. In fact, I know that's how I did the top. So I might just go ahead and change my plans here, and this is going to be a little bit simpler project, where I was going to do this wire using slide connectors onto another wire, but I don't think I need to do that now that I'm actually looking at how our sample is running. So let's go ahead and we'll start with stripping out these two wires, and then we're going to add just our ring connects. So our ring connects here are going to fit right on top of these screws. So then all I need to do is plop these guys on, pull out the screws, set them on top of the ring connectors, and we'll be good and done. So let's go ahead and start by stripping these guys out. Now this wire looks to be 18 gauge. If you don't know, you're not completely sure, always strip them higher than you think they might be. I'm pretty confident on these being 18 gauge, being as that the wire sticks up a little bit. And if I probe the holes, then I can see where the 18, where the 20 is, etc. So we're going to go ahead and stop here with 18. We don't want more than about half a centimeter or so. So we're going to go ahead and run this. As I said, these are not my favorite wire strippers, but my favorite wire strippers are buried back in the toolbox, but they'll do since I only need to do a couple strips. All right, so there we have our wires stripped out. Now these guys here are going to tell us what gauge they are. You're not going to be able to see it on the camera here, but it is reporting 16 to 14, and I'm at 18. So I'm a little bit larger than I'd like to be, but I don't have any rings on board of these that are smaller. So what we can do with that is I can just fold the wires over, and that'll be nice, nice and good. As long as they're going to be tight, then that's all we really need. So folding it over, though, is going to increase the effective gauge when it comes to running these wires here. So now what we're going to do is, I like setting this in by prepping this guy here. We're going to set this up in the orientation I want it to be. So that's how the wire is. And now we're going to slip this guy in the back. Once it gets this nice connection, I can see the wires popping out the front. Let me focus in on that for you guys. I'm going to pull it out slightly so it's right inside, and now we're going to squeeze this guy down and squeeze it down a couple of times. You really need this guy squeezed down. You don't want it to pop out down the road. Give it a good pull, make sure it's nice and tight, which it is. So now these guys are nice and tight. They don't feel like they're going anywhere, and they look nice and tight and secure as well. So the next step we're going to do is let's go ahead and use the needle nose, because I think they are going to be the easiest. It's either going to be the needle nose or it's going to be the electrical. I think the electrical is going to be easier. My ratchet's around somewhere, but as I was looking for that, I realized that this guy here with a 3/8 inch hex would probably be the best bet. So there is our, pull that out a little bit more. There's our positive. Pull this guy out a little bit. Just gonna hand screw it down for now. And now we're gonna do this one here. Now, if this Raspberry Pi gets in the way, it's actually Velcroed up, so I can actually just pull it up with Velcro, but I don't think it's going to be in my way here. So, do that. There's our nut there. Let's grab our negative end. So I'm going to keep my hand right next to this to prevent these guys from all moving around on me as I tighten it down. Same on over here. Okay, so now this guy's nice and tight. And then in the process of doing this, it looks like we had a my main power feed for my switch had popped off. So let's go ahead and slide that guy right back on. All right, that looks good. So now the last step what we're going to do is we're going to plug the fuse back in. First I'm going to toggle the switch, make sure the fuse looks good. And it does, so we're going to plug the fuse back in, and then I'll be back with the voltmeter to test the connection. All right, so our fuse is plugged back in, and for simplicity of measuring it, I just plugged this guy into a male port adapter here, and now I can just measure it by taking my positive and my negative off of this guy on my voltmeter. Pardon for the lawnmower that just drove by. So right now with the switch being off, I should expect none or negligible voltage. And right now, our voltage is reading Now it's dropping. I plugged it in just to test it before I turn the camera on. So it is dropping. Okay, it's down to like 300 millivolts and still dropping. So that's 0.0. So right now we're at 0.1 millivolts. All right, so we turn this guy on. Now the monitors both turn on. Confirm both monitors are on. And plugging this guy in. We are sitting at 13 volts, which is the current power draw on the system. So now this guy perfectly works. Now before I accidentally clip these guys together, I'm going to turn our switch off and unplug that. That way we don't have an accidental case of something switching over. So now I can use this as just a nice port. It'll just dangle down here, and anything that takes this type of port connection is going to work. All right, so there now we have a standard size 12 volt port, which is in the van. So we can use this for a variety of things. My primary use is going to be to use this as a camera port, so I don't have to pull in extra wires to power my camera when I'm recording videos directly on the computer with a capture card. And then what I have is I picked up another one of the voltage regulators, which it's around here somewhere, and I'm going to scale that down to the size I need and then just plug that in like we did on the fix video on the Switch to Linux channel. Now the other thing I can use it for is my onboard, like I have an onboard wireless router, but the signal doesn't work quite as good when I leave the van. So I actually have another router which will work really good when I want to leave the van. So if I want to set that internet and then sit it at some picnic table a ways away, that is actually a direct 12 volt. I can plug that directly into that new line. So anything that I need that type of external power supply for, or I just have a bag of things if I need to make a power supply for something else. This just adds an extra thing, something I didn't think about when I built the van, but now we have it. So there is just a little bit about some of the electrical fixes you might need to do, some of the things that you may not think about as you are walking through your van life. So thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. We will see you on down the road here at Tux Traveler.